Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr.NAVANEET DESHPANDE. Welcome you all to this class. I'm an MBA as well as a PhD in organizational management and also an AIMA-accredited management teacher. Today's topic, which I'm handling, is computer-based supply chain management and information systems integration. Let's now see the outline. To begin with, we have the introduction. Then we have supply chain components. We then go on to the types of supply chains, problems along the supply chain, system integration, integrated value chain, how information systems facilitate the supply chain, and enterprises resources planning. From there on, we go to the e-commerce and supply chain intelligence. If we have still time left, we'll also have some case studies and ending with a summary. So now let's begin. The term supply chain management. So as you can see, it is a close linkage and coordination of activities involved in buying, making, and product, and then moving a product from one place to another place. Another job of supply chain management could be integrating the supply on one hand, manufacturer on another hand, and the distributors, including the customer logistics. What this supply chain management does is essentially it reduces the time, redundant effort, and inventory costs. Some of the other definitions of supply chain management could be, it is a network of organizations and business processes. So you can see it is not one organization. It is several group of organizations which will take up the responsibility of several specialties. For instance, it helps in procurement of materials, transformation of raw materials into intermediate products, and then finished products and its subsequent distribution. So supply chain management helps in distribution of the finished products until it reaches the customer. Now, let's now delve onto this diagram in which you have something on the upstream management, whereby you can see the first tier suppliers. There are multiple suppliers. Out of them, the goods which are produced will go on to the second tier suppliers. Then it will finally reach our suppliers if we are the manufacturer in this case. So having said that, the supply chain management has to understand its capacities, the level of inventory which they hold, how much is in progress, and what is the delivery schedule by which the product is going to be prepared. And finally, the payments, terms, and conditions. So these items make up to what is known as the downstream supply chain management. Essentially, what they do at an operational level could be handling of the orders, return requests, repairs, and service requests and payments. So this diagram essentially throws light on different layers of supply chain, tier 3, tier 2, tier 1 suppliers. Similarly, on the customer side also, you can have a separate set of tiers as they go on until it reaches the last mile delivery when the product reaches the customer. So now let's move on to the supply chain components. Supply chain may involve 3 segments. As we all see, the upstream segment, which includes organizations' first tier suppliers and subsequent suppliers. Then internal supply chain segment. It includes all the processes used by an organization in transforming the inputs into outputs from the time materials enter the organization to the time finished product goes to distribution outside the organization. The downstream supply chain segment includes all the processes involved in distributing and delivering the products to final customers. So what this essentially involves is when it's about to reach the customers, even if it were to be returned by the customers, it includes the reverse logistics, returned items in case of there are flaws or damages. So the flow of the reverse direction is also included in the final lag of the supply chain components. So supply chain planning system has to enable the firm to generate forecasts for a product. The more accurate the forecast production is, the more ideal it will be for all the departments, right from the production department, the finance department, and the marketing department, to properly oversee all the functions so that there is a smooth coherence between all the departments. So supply chain execution systems has to fall in place as per the planning system, which essentially manages the flow of products to the distribution centers and warehouses. So after having said that, let's now move on to the types of supply chains. So integrated make to stock is the first type of supply chain. So in this case, the model focuses on tracking the customer demand in real time. So every company wishes to know how many actual sales are going to happen. So it requires tremendous amount of pre-planning and accurate predictions. So in real time, whatever demand exists in the market, that has to be accumulated and compiled. The data has to be compiled. So integration is achieved through the information systems that is fully integrated. Information is integrated further down the supply chain to the procurement function. So this is termed as integrated make to stock based upon the demand. Now, there is another type of supply chain known as a continuous replenishment. It usually happens in the service industries, wherein constantly we replenish inventory by working closely with the suppliers and intermediaries. Very tight integration is required between the order fulfillment process and the production process. Real-time information about the demand changes is required, and which keeps the company moving forward. Essentially, the continuous replenishment, more or less, it is used in service industries, be it hotels, insurance companies, even in cases of courier services, and even food delivery units, to give a few examples. Let's now further dive into another type of supply chain, which is known as build to order. Take an example of the Dell computer, which is best known for this model. So build to order is nothing but assembly of computers, order, parts, and assembly of all the units. Starts immediately upon receipt of the order from the customer. Careful management of the component and inventory is required. For this, many common components across the several production line is maintained. So this calls in for a lot of data and just-in-time procedures in case if it is required to build to order, so that the lag time is reduced. So we understood around a few types of supply chains. Going ahead, we are also trying to know the global supply chains. So primarily the supply chains that involve customers and suppliers in other countries, not just limited to the domestic geographies. Usually these take longer times than domestic ones and can be very complex in terms of scheduling. So why companies are getting global, what drives them to make global is, first of all, there are places where the prices of raw materials are lower. There could be areas where services charges are lower and labor charges are also lower. So the company essentially goes in for venturing out these places. Besides, it also goes for availability of products and technology and high quality of products in the global market, which it wants to create a name of reputation in the market alongside the global competitors. So expansion could be one of those. Scaling up is another reason. So global supply chain is driven by so many factors, including economic factors, political factors, environmental factors, technological factors, economic factors, and sometimes even the legal factors will affect the global supply chains. And now one can ask whether this seamlessly happens all the time. Probably no. The real answer would be there are problems along the way which the supply chain management professionals have to undertake. There could be uncertainties and the need for coordinate several activities, internal units, and business partners. One of the most essential things, if you were to ask me, would be demand forecasting, because in order to handle these uncertainties, the more accurate your demand forecasting is, the more leverage it will give us to the production units and finance units to support and build in resilience. So it may be influenced by various factors such as competition, it is affected by prices, It could also be affected by weather conditions. And an ongoing process, which is nothing but the technological advancements and the developments happening in the field. So the coordination problems may occur if the company's departments are not well connected, or rather they're disconnected from the ground market. So messages to business partners are misunderstood often. In order to overcome them, the parties have to overcome the problems of the supply chains. Essentially, the misinformation which is creeping in through various sources. The problems along the supply chain. There is a term which we often come across known as a bullwhip effect. Information about the demand for the product gets distorted. The first line in customer at the retail outlet will collect some information. By the time it goes to the second tier, it will have been modified into some other number because the number get distorted by the time it reaches to the manufacturer and then the suppliers, as we have seen under various conditions. So this effect initially observed in a case study known as a Procter & Gamble in connection with the disposable diapers, or rather we call as Pampers, as in the brand names. Though the actual sales in stores were fairly stable, orders from the wholesalers and distributors were unexpectedly high, and the sales weren't happening despite the demands. Another challenge could be the phantom stockouts. So it could happen the company has produced a lot of goods, but then there is sudden stockout because such a problem occurs when the customers are told that the product they want is not available, although it is available somewhere in the supply line. Let's now understand the other part of our presentation, apart from the supply chain concepts, what we term it as system integration or developing resilience into the system. The first of all, let's try to understand the tangible benefits which we accrue by integrating all the systems in place. The first one being the inventory reduction, which is a core essential goal of any supply chain integration process. The second thing would be reduction in the personnel working at the ground floor or the factory line. Then we have productivity improvement. So any company would like to make its productivity on higher standards to improve seamlessly across all the departments, which is achieved by integrating the systems at various departments. Invariably, another goal could be IT cost reduction. So any company would have limited budget to spend for IT, and over a period of time, because of cloud computing and artificial intelligence and machine learning, all these possibilities are there, which is given by the scientific advancement in these fields. Another benefit that we can accrue from this system integration could be the procurement cost reduction. All these previous steps will eventually leave an impact, which is on the profits and the revenue generation thereof. Now, similarly, as compared to the tangible benefits, let's try to see the intangible benefits. So every department would like to have an openness for communication, an open door policy, so that everybody knows where the company stands, what the status of the company is, where the company will reach in another 5 years. But that's based on the mission vision, nevertheless. But however, intangible benefits of system integration will leave us with information visibility, right from the raw material till it reaches the hands as a finished product in the customers. So the information visibility is one of the intangible benefits which system integration offers. There could be new or improved processes along the way, which have evolved over a period of time due to detailing of videos. Then, more importantly nowadays, the Net Promoter Score, as we can see in case of customer responsiveness to how they like the product, how they approach the product, how they approach the company. So responsiveness of the customer is essentially required for whom the entire system is functioning in the first place. Then, how much of flexibility is there in the system could be measured because of system integration. Finally, in order to meet the global competitors, we have to undertake the standardization processes. certification, ISO standards, and several other Indian domestic standards have to be met in order to inculcate the sense of discipline. So the another topic which is very interesting would be the integrated value chain. So let's now try to understand how different it would be from the supply chain. Essentially, the value chain describes the primary activities along the supporting activities. The value chain, when value chain is extended, it will include the first tier suppliers, second tier supplier, third tier suppliers. Similarly, the first tier customers, second tier customers, and the third tier customers, wherein the value is added at every stage. So the process by which multiple enterprises within a shared market channel collaboratively plan and implement and manage flow of goods and services and information also on one hand along the entire joint chain effort is known as the integrated value chain. It is available as an example in agriculture, it is available in FMCG, it is there in IT industry, it is there also in finance nowadays. Supply chain transformed into the integrated value chain gives us a lot of emphasis for understanding in several cases when it extends the chain from sub-suppliers to the customers. So integrates the back office operations with those of the front office operations. It becomes highly customer-centric. And integrated value chain seeks to optimize the value addition by information services provided. So how these information systems facilitate the supply chain management is essentially meeting of the two domains, which have evolved separately. In fact, information systems has come from the engineering background. Supply chain management has come from the operations background. When they meet, we can take an informed decision instead of taking an half-informed decision. So we have to decide when to produce, what to produce, how much to store, and how much to move on. This requires that rapid communication of the orders takes place, and communication on order and tracking of the order status is essentially met on a real-time basis. Checking of inventory availability, monitoring the levels, alongside the tracking of the shipments is essential, which will have the effect once these two systems will be congruent enough and synchronized enough. And this will lead to planned production based on actual demand. So rapid communication, and also to a higher level, if you can take right from the tactical or the operational level to the strategic level, you can design any change in the product. You can provide product specifications and eventually share the information about the defect rates and the returns. So this is how wholesome improvement and enhancement of systems will enable the supply chain management to evolve over a period of time. So most of us have come across this word in case of all the enterprises known as the ERP, which has been the buzzword since the last 2 decades, that is known as the enterprise resources planning. The process of managing all resources and their use in the entire enterprise in a coordinated manner is ERP. The objective is to integrate all departments and functions across the company onto a single information system that can serve all the enterprise's needs. So at your fingertips, you have all the information which, if you're a CEO or a GM or even a manager, or even for that matter, the frontline executive, you have all the information at your fingertips because of the ERP deployment. Implementation of ERP can be done through commercial softwares available like SAP, Oracle, and PeopleSoft, which have been there in the industry for quite some time now. Another important segment of this would be understanding what e-commerce and SCM have something in common. Now, this delves on to something known as e-procurement for the raw materials. So internal supply chain management activities ranging from entering orders of materials and streamlining production, recording sales, tracking shipments, etc. This will help you for online selling on downstream activities. There are large companies like Cisco, IBM, etc. sell on their website also, but buyers review electronic catalog of these companies' website when they are comparable on an e-commerce platform. Electronic auctions can shorten the cycle time and save on logistics costs and administrative expenses. Now, there's another important component of this is supply chain intelligence. So the inclusion of business intelligence, the BI, in supply chain software solutions is what we call as the supply chain intelligence. It involves series of enabling strategic decision making by analyzing the data along the entire supply chain. Let's now move on to the time of case study. A case in point is known as the Warner Lambert case study. This company is a major product manufacturing Listerine antiseptic mouthwash. Now it's a division of Pfizer. Material for making Listerine comes from eucalyptus trees in Australia and are now shipped to the Warner Lambert manufacturing plant in New Jersey. So the concern of WL company was the raw materials in Australia and manufacturing plant in New Jersey and USA. The problem is to forecast an overall demand in order to determine how much Listerine has to be produced in the first place. The challenge faced by the Warner Lab. Sometimes often they focused on that most of the retailers and wholesalers were able to reach an imaginary figure of wrong forecast that led to high inventories of shortages at some times. Either it was a high inventory or it was shortages during some other times. So the Warner Lambert demands that accurate forecasting is required, and it was possible because of Menu Logistics Incorporation. They started using something known as a demand planning information system. This demand planning information system was provided by the vendor of the IT services for the supply chain management. And the system analyzes the manufacturing, distribution, and sales data against the expected demand. So on one hand, one has to figure out how much of expected demand. On the other hand, you have things in place at the manufacturing level, at the distribution levels, and at the store level. And the business climate information is collected day in and day out. So it helped to overcome such barriers at how much Listerine to make and how much to distribute and how much raw ingredient needed and where to procure it from Australia. So all in all, we have reached a stage whereby we understood what case study, and we are trying to see what kind of problems are faced by supply chain management procedures and what kind of solutions are there. So the problems like slow delivery was there on paper-based documents. Now, slowly, it was already a decade and a half ago, it was shifted onto the electronic data interchange. Then there was a problem of linear sequence of processing, which was too slow. And it started with a solution known as the parallel processing using the software on the intranet to per se, and then on to internet, which has now been taken over by the cloud systems and reaching the artificial intelligence and blockchain technologies. Now, there was a lack of information progressively, which was hindering the processes, and for which they enabled the groupware products. Some of them were legacy products and others were collaborative tools. There were problems of poor coordination and cooperation between various departments, and there was a delay in shipment, which was handled by eventually usage of Internet of Things, robotics in several warehouses, and usage of warehouse management softwares. So in all supply chain management, if you try to study a little bit of history, you can see problems on one side, you can have solutions on another hand, where every company has to kind of carve out its own niche as to what kind of warehouse management software is going to use. So let's now sum it up in terms of the summary. Supply chain connects the suppliers to the manufacturing company. It connects and develops the interdependence between the departments inside the company and eventually produces a final seamless integration for the customers as per the demand. Then there was a time when difficulties were emerging to manage supply chain due to uncertainties in demand and supply, and the need to coordinate between several businesses and partner activities has to be handled by not only improving supply chains, but also enhancing the IT on another hand. The e-commerce can provide new solutions to problems along the supply chain by automating the processes and integrating companies' major business activities like using of artificial intelligence, as well as blockchain technologies, Internet of Things, and so on, because of the advancement of technology. However, ERP, which has been there since the last 20 years, is designed to improve standard business transactions and is equipped with decision support capabilities and web interfaces. So this brings to the end of my presentation. I'll be happy and glad to answer some of your queries. You can type in the chat box or raise your hands for the same. I'll be able to respond them on the chat as well as in the group. Thank you for all in attending this kind of session in this week. Have a nice day.